Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Thanks for stopping in if you're new, and thanks for coming back if you've been here before. Today I'm attempting to make a miter sled for the table saw. I had some struggles with this, as you will see over the course of the video, but in the end it does seem to work quite well, and I'll be able to provide an update over the next couple of weeks as I have quite a few pictures frames to make. As you can see, I'm making a sled out of some MDF. I got this from breaking down an old entertainment center from Walmart earlier in the day. It was perfectly flat and the right size, so no reason to waste it. Making the runners is where I struggled the most. The first set of them, yes, the first, I attempted to cut out of some scrap whiteboard material that I had laying around. It was about the right thickness, it was glossy, so I figured it would slide well, and it was some scrap. One of the problems I'm having is having a cheap table saw fence that doesn't ever quite line up parallel with the blade, but we got them cut and I was fairly happy that I could get them to work. So we put the sliders in the T-tracks using the old washer trick so it sticks up a bit over the bed. I didn't have any pennies and so I used washers. And then another mistake was made. I glued the runners to the MDF and let them sit for a few hours to dry prior to screwing them. The problem is the glue didn't really want to stick very well to the MDF, a problem that I will note in the future and would address later on in this build. And now we countersink some screws, and it's here that we'll run into more problems. The glue not setting well allowed some movement in the rails when trying to screw them in, and I think also due to the composition of the whiteboard material, it also allowed the runners to kind of warp a little bit. I think it was due probably even just to the moisture in the glue, but those problems would cause further problems down the line. Here I just over torqued and snapped the end completely off of my runner like a complete moron, but stuff happens. Once we had the runners on at first glance, it seemed to be okay, but we will see that that was not the case. Next, I spent a few minutes trying to decide what length would be best for I guess you would say these are fences, and what length they should be to give us the proper angle in the middle, which, is going to be a 90-degree angle, and they would be functional for the purposes. Once we have a plan in place, then we cut a slit straight down the middle, almost straight down the middle of our sled, and that will be our groove for the blade. Don't go too far and weaken your board too much, though. Next, just use your carpenter square to find a 45-degree angle relative to your blade, and I marked this out with a marking knife. I know I'm going to catch a little bit of flack for using a plastic speed square, but I maintain it's got a 45-degree angle, or pretty close enough for my purposes. Let's line our first fence piece up with that line we made with the marking knife, and I'm simply just going to tack it down with some brad nails because that's the simplest and quickest way. And this is basically a prototype sled because I'm going to remake a better one with the things that I learned from making this one. So this will get me through while I make my first picture frames with it. Next, we'll simply just cut this corner off, and then we will use that side of the fence as a reference to line up and cut our other side. So that will be our first cut that we have made with our miter sled. You might notice that things also got a little squirrely in this cut, and it's not quite straight, so I had to go get another piece and redo it because that was not acceptable. It was all over the place. I was just ugly and quite embarrassing. I thought about editing it out, but I decided I would share it with you. Next, we need to make sure that these boards line up exactly at 90 degrees. This is the most important angle. And then I just tack it down and cut out the slot for the blade straight down the middle, halfway through. It is here that I notice and start to realize just how big of a problem I have with the runners. As you can see, there's a lot of lateral play in them. They're not quite wide enough, and it's making, well, the blade's not going quite in at 90 degrees. There's just a lot of wiggle room in there, and that is basically unacceptable. I then simply tacked in some of the spare scrap pieces just for a blade protector and guard, and then I left the piece overnight while I went to sleep and thought about the problems with my creation. After a night of much reflection and contemplation, I came back the next morning with some orange shorts on, reinvigorated, and I found some old oak plywood that was in my barn, so I decided I would fashion some new runners out of it. So I sanded it up, and then I cut it into some new runners. Now I realize that I am cross-cutting here. I am fully aware of that, and I am prepared for the comments that I will receive for that. Anyways, they look pretty decent, and after spending some time trying to fashion them into the appropriate size and shape, it was now time to reattach them. I figured I'd be smart this time and use double-sided tape instead of glue, and not make the same mistakes I made on the previous runners, except double-sided tape also came with its own problems, one of which was that it does not have much lateral twisting strength, I found out. But there's another problem with it also, which we will see later on. It's here that first problem with the double-sided tape arose, because as I was trying to add the screws and countersink them, one of the runners moved. I'm not sure which one, but one of them definitely moved because it no longer rode properly in the T-slots. Little bit of wax paste on them to make it run smooth, and then we'll turn it over and find out that there's a problem. A big problem. A big problem that has to be fixed somehow. So after realizing that no amount of wiggling or moving it back and forth or staring at it was going to fix it, I decided the only way probably to fix this was to remove one of the runners. So that I did, and in discovering this, I did learn one of the strengths of double-sided tape, and that is that it is pretty strong. It's actually a lot stronger. This was my first time ever using it, and I was surprised with how strong vertically it can hold. Now it looks like everything's running pretty smooth, so we're ready to test by cutting our first miter joint with our newly acquired miter sled. And that looks pretty good if you ask me for a first time. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And stay safe and don't forget to smile. Thank you and goodbye.